All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, where the vehicle explosion that rocked Nashville in the United States is now being described as an intentional act by the police. 3 people have been injured in the blast, but not with life-threatening injuries. Now, on your screens will be the picture of the motorhome that later exploded in Nashville. Now, this is from the Twitter page of the Metro Nashville Police Department. The explosion tore through a section of the city's downtown. The explosion was so strong that it was felt 9 blocks away. It also reportedly destroyed several other vehicles that were parked nearby and has also damaged several buildings. At least about 20 buildings in downtown Nashville experienced some damage from the explosion. Now, according to reports that are coming in, several people have been transported to hospitals from the scene, but none of them have suffered any critical injuries. A motive for this explosion has not been given out by the police so far, who are presently carrying out an investigation.
As of right now, initial evidence does show that the early morning explosion was a deliberate bomb being set off in our community. And the blast caused injuries and catastrophic damage to this very historic part of Nashville. Now, 3 people have been hospitalized as a result of the explosion, are in a stable condition, and my prayers are with them and their loved ones.
Now, according to reports, authorities have found what they describe as human remains in the vicinity of the explosion. It is unclear as to how the remains are related to the explosion or whether they might belong to the person responsible for the attack or do they belong to a victim.
I don't want to speculate, but you would think that this person didn't want to harm people, that maybe just wanted to destroy, but we're not sure until we, get further into the investigation. Right now, there's no known fatalities that we know of. So.
Just the tissues is what you believe, that you found human tissue in the remains is what you believe?
We believe. Could be, but to be for certain, we have to examine it, and once we know for sure, and then we'll let everyone know, but we're investigating.
The buildings shook in the immediate area and beyond after a loud boom was heard early on Christmas morning. The explosion sent shattered glass and debris over a wide area, rocking nearby buildings. The black smoke and flames were also seen billowing in the area. The explosion reportedly took place at about 6:30 a.m. local time, and the FBI is leading the investigation. Flights have been halted out of Nashville Airport due to telecommunications issues associated with the explosion. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what's actually happened in Nashville, we are joined in by Mr. Stephen Golub, who's an international affairs expert, who's joining us live from California. Mr. Golub, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. At this point of time, what do we exactly know about this explosion that has taken place in Nashville that the police at this point of time are describing as an intentional attack, but have stopped short of calling it an act of terror?
Yeah, I'd say the initial information or speculation we might even make is positive in the sense that if you wanted to take a lot of human life, the very last time of day or time of year you would do it is early on Christmas morning here. That's almost literally when you'd have the fewest people out on the street. So that might have been the perpetrator or perpetrator's calculation or part of their calculations. In addition, the fact that there was some kind of a warning issued, a loudspeaker warning issued, recorded from the vehicle itself before the explosion went off, telling people to evacuate is significant. So it seems as though there was at least some thought that went into this, and for the good of all the people, except for the few people who unfortunately were injured, it turned out not nearly as bad as it could have been. All of those are relatively good indications of at least a lack of intent to really maximize damage. On the other hand, this was a huge bomb that went off, and that in and of itself is significant.
Absolutely indeed. And at this point of time, do we know any details at all as to who this vehicle belonged to? Was there a person seated inside the vehicle at the time the explosion took place? Because the police have in fact put out an image of this RV, a recreational vehicle that seems to be driven around in the city at the time that that picture was taken.
The one thing that's interesting about the RV is that it's an older vehicle, from what they can tell from the images. So it seems like it wasn't rented. That makes it that much easier to detect who might have had it, who might have possessed it in the days and weeks leading up to, and the minutes leading up to this attack. And it's just significant that, as I said, there wasn't really, yet another indication that there might have been an intent to warn people is that gunfire was heard before the explosion went off, maybe an hour or more before the explosion went off, which in turn drew police to the area. The police in turn saw the RV and knocked on doors to get people to evacuate. It might have been, and I'm really just speculating here, given the report that there might be human tissue in the area coming from within the RV, it might have been some kind of a suicide by a lone, very disturbed individual.
That's not something that is still up for speculation because the police have not confirmed this. But for people who are looking at this from outside of the United States, give us a sense of what an RV actually is and how frequent is it that people would drive around in an RV inside of a city?
Yeah, the term RV, I think either one of your correspondents or someone just now referred to it as a motorhome. That's a better term than a recreational vehicle or RV. It's a pickup. Of this particular cause of the blast was a pickup truck with a rather large attachment both on top of it that is over the cab of the truck and then extending backwards maybe 20, 25 feet. So it's the kind of thing that people might take vacation road trips on, big enough that it might have its own very small bathroom inside and a bed or two and a little dining table or two inside. It's a rather substantial vehicle. And the kind, as I said, that people might use to go on a road trip across the country or across part of the country if they're taking a vacation and want to be fairly self-sufficient in the process.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Stephen Golub, for joining us and getting us all those insights. This is still a developing story, and we'll await more details in terms of the investigation that the police are carrying out in this blast that has taken place on the morning of Christmas in the United States. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.